So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the latest TravMedia Meets webinar. And this one is in our professional development series. And today's topic is broadcasting your campaign, how to secure TV, radio and online results. I'm Henry Hemming, TravMedia's Managing Director. Lovely to welcome you all with us today. And to discuss this topic, this thorny topic, we have three eminent broadcasting specialists with us. I'll introduce them now so that they can all give you a wave before we get cracking. Our guests are Rajan, Datar, presenter for the travel show, BBC World. Rajan, great to have you with us.
Lovely to be here, thank you.
David Reilly, ITN News Meridian, and also award-winning vlogger, Life of Reilly.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me a reason to put on a shirt for the first time in 3 months.
It's nice to see you with a shirt on, David, I must say. Great to have you here. Last but not least, Carly Reid from Brighter Group, a Finn Partners company. Carly is a broadcasting PR specialist at one of the nation's leading travel PR companies. Carly, great to have you here today.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to put on my frills.
And you've done that extremely well, if I may say so.
Thank you.
So what we're going to cover today, national TV segments are every PR's dream. That's what we want, but getting those results are not so easy these days. It's a much more controlled and regulated environment. There are hardly any pure and dedicated travel programs anymore. Wish you were here. We wish you were still here. The PRs have to turn to opportunities such as selling in their spokespeople for news and features, and we'll certainly cover that. But are the glory days of sending TV crews to destinations for a week of reports and quizzes, are those well and truly over? We'll find out. We'll see what the opportunities are. Given the rules of commerciality, but the multitude of hours to fill on Britain's TV networks, are there actually opportunities for PRs to pitch in a whole TV series? I'm sure that will get you listening. Radio. Does radio sometime offer slightly easier scope for results? We'll certainly try and give radio some airplay today. And last but not least, and this is, I'm sure, why we've got David here, what about the brand itself becoming the broadcaster? What about the brand creating its own memorable segments of travel broadcasting with content creators and putting them out on social media? At least the results are very measurable and the metrics are very, very clear. We'll have a look at that as well, because nowadays that's within the definition of broadcasting, I feel. So we hope that COVID-19 has reached some sort of turning point, and we hope that TV broadcasters may soon begin to commission fresh content. And we'll hear, I think, especially from Rajan, on what ideas they will and won't listen to. So from TV through to social media, we will try and cover all the opportunities for you PRs, both in the current time and when we return to our brave new futures. Today's webinar is part of the TravMedia Meets series, giving travel PR professionals a wide-ranging series of news webinars and professional development sessions and quizzes. I hope you've joined the Ultimate Travel Quiz. If you haven't, there'll be another one along soon. I want to just ask, before we get going, I want to ask you, the audience, to start thinking about questions you would like to ask of our panelists, because you can never ask this early enough. You'll see the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. Please put some questions there. We'll give you a shout out. If you can put your company name at the end of the question, that would be great, because we just know your first and last name from Zoom. We probably know who you are, but it'd be great to know your company as well. Okay, let's get cracking. We're going to go through our experts in this order. We're going to hear from Rajan, then David, then Carly. So Rajan, we want to hear your views. So Rajan is an award-winning broadcaster, journalist, and conference moderator. He's also appeared at TravMedia conferences worldwide. He's had 3 decades of broadcasting experience spanning current affairs, arts, documentary making, and more. But he's a real specialist in travel programming. He's presented on the BBC's flagship the travel show, average audiences of up to 70 million worldwide for over a decade. Some while ago, he began his career hosting one of the first independent youth travel programs on the BBC, Rough Guide to the World. much more recently, he's fronted lockdown specials for the travel show. And early this year, a 5-part series on Japan, an award-winning series. I say that because it won the TravMedia Awards Best Broadcasting Gong. And his 40 BBC travelogues have included everything from wrestling in Mongolia and abseiling in the favelas in Brazil. Rajan, it's great to have you with us today. What are your thoughts about how PR professionals can best secure broadcast results?
Well, first of all, Henry, thank you so much for having me. The first thing I should say is that in spite of my association with the BBC for a long time, I'm actually a freelancer. So in that sense, I'm a gun for hire. I don't get paid unless usually an idea I've got or I get commissioned to do actually comes on air. So, I understand, I feel the pain of the PRs and other freelancers who've got brilliant ideas and for some reason they don't get commissioned. So I think we should really say that. And there is sometimes no rhyme or reason. Let's just talk about what the travel show did. And you kindly pointed out what the travel show was. A weekly program, goes around the world, shown domestically as well. When we first, obviously the whole coronavirus thing dawned, our first call really was to answer consumer concerns. And I've done these little things just so that you can all be aware of where we are in the little talk I'm giving. This is Mr. High Tech here. But seriously, it's about refunds. It was about insurance. It was about cancelled flights. We have a guru that everyone probably knows, a travel guru called Simon Calder, who is ubiquitous, and he was actually being plagued with loads and loads of questions. And that was, in a sense, that was the priority. Then we kind of moved on to perhaps talking kind of almost sideways about travel. So we'd look at the effect of no tourists in animal sanctuaries, for example. There's one in Rwanda, we did one in Morocco. And so you kind of lateral look at travel, because what we couldn't do was kind of ram it down people's throats that, we couldn't show them back-to-back travel as if nothing had happened. I mean, it's just wrong. We did show the odd repeat, and we are still doing so, but they tend to be more cultural programs. I was in Northeast India, and it's much more about looking at culture. It's not saying, here's a great destination, you've got to be here. And we don't do that anyway, on the whole. What is now happening and what I can see developing is I actually went to Stansted Airport the other day. So we're looking ahead now a little bit. There are these rumblings, obviously, of, hang on a minute, travel might just be happening. You've got the likes of Spain and Portugal and Greece who are desperate, particularly for British custom, to trying to offer tantalizing trips and flights and stuff. And they, to me, these corridors might well happen. The corridors of travel, air corridors or whatever. I think they may happen. And that's the next stage we're going to go on to. And with Stansted, it was about what measures are we going to, are the airport going to be taking in terms of sanitation and health and all that stuff. And then we talked to Etihad on the plane. So that's what we've done so far when it comes to how we've covered the coronavirus thing. Now, the next thing that I think, one thing I should mention is news programs, because you refer to them. So outside travel, news is definitely interested in travel right now, but they like the quirky. They like stuff that is unique or interesting. And I mean, I think they featured an Italian hotel recently, which has worked out a way of total social distancing in everything they do. And it was interesting in how they were operating. Those robot hotels, I think we heard about a couple of years ago from Japan, I can see them being really interested. But I mean, the fact is that we are all hampered by uncertainty, and that will continue. But I think you're going to get a few people trying it out, putting out little feelers as to how, we can connect, because it's a big industry. It needs to make money again, obviously. Now, the second thing is domestic tourism, and I'm not going to bother with these stupid things. Domestic tourism. Domestic tourism is obviously huge. In this country, it's 127 billion pounds, they reckon, 8% of the UK workforce. That is what is going to be paid attention to by domestic broadcasters, I suspect. I think there will be a programme about how amazing tourism in the UK is. But I don't think it's going to be obvious, because we have got this rather bizarre situation where there's mixed messages. People in Cornwall, for instance, Cornwall needs tourism. At the same time, Cornwall doesn't want tourism right now. There's a discouragement of people to go down there right now. I suspect Barnardo Castle, what's called Barnard Castle in Durham, has got an awful lot of publicity in recent days, but probably not the kind of one it wants. But again, I think it's going to be different places. And I've got an idea for a program here, which is called something like Hidden Gems. And, you know, I'd like some ideas from people, which is those old relics, those old monuments, those old buildings, or even an old gin palace, a pub or whatever that's gone into, or an area that has not really had much attention. Basically, that is going to be interesting. Renovating them, getting the local community involved, a kind of repair shop, but in travel. This is just an idea I've got, and it may not be picked up by the BBC. I think there will definitely be a domestic program, domestic tourism program on the BBC and probably on ITV, who do quite a lot of this stuff anyway. And I think it's just a question of which one they go for. They probably want top celebs and all that stuff. But then if anybody out there is interested in doing it independently, and David, that's not, you know, we can talk about this later, but there is obviously options to do it on the YouTube channel or whatever. But my main point is that there will be interest in domestic travel, but it's a question of how you pitch it. So what do we then do about, how do PRs and destinations and tourist companies get our attention? The first thing it's always going to be, it's about perception and psychology, and it's about, is it safe? Safe and clean. That is going to be the priority. You're going to have to persuade them that any destination or anything that you're trying to basically promote, that it will tick those boxes. In a sense, you might want trusted ambassadors, maybe well-known travel presenters or whatever, to go out there and check it out for you. But I mean, but semi-seriously, you are going to want some sort of validation before people go out there, I suspect. And it could be your own YouTube channel. Just got to make sure that, obviously, if it's on social media, that people believe that the people you're using are, you know, are independent and all that stuff. TV likes characters and stories, obviously. I think there is a story here, and it might be a documentary, but it's about a community, a tourism community in the developing world that's been horribly affected by this. There'll be individual characters there. There'll be situations. It could be about poaching, for example. And, you know, obviously a lot of people talking about how poaching has increased because tourism money isn't coming in. Therefore, people have to do something to get some money, blah, blah, blah. And there's not enough tourists around to stop poaching because their presence discourages it. So that's going to be interesting. And just how communities are getting by, and again, the characters, because I think what's going to happen is we are not going to look at travel nearly as much in the future as being a transactional thing. It is about a guest and a host. It is about empathy. It is about people who are equal. So it's about sharing culture. That's going to be much more part of the ethos. I hope I'm not being too optimistic there and idealistic, but I think that will be the way forward. It'll be clean, green, and conscientiously driven, if you like. That's certainly what I suspect a lot of broadcasters are going to be interested in. I'm interested also in places like Ibiza, clubbing. You know, what's going to happen there? You know, is the whole thing, I mean, it was already changing from being just music to being much more of a healthy kind of health-oriented area, but are we going to see places like that are going to be in some, perhaps saying, yes, we want no more corporate stuff. Let's end that corporate thing. Let's go for much more local, organic stuff. That may happen the world over. So just to finish, and I'm ranting on, sorry. The takeaway message is that I do think that this situation presents opportunities as well as hurdles. Conscious travel, as I keep saying, will be the watchword. How can tourism help us out of the crisis? Can tourism be a hero in a sense here? Because after all of that publicity of carbon emissions and over tourism, perhaps we can start seeing tourism as a force for good. Back to that issue about empathy, about deeper stories about communities who perhaps are involved in tourism and travel, and I think we could be in a good place in about a year's time. Just going to reset is what I would say, because never has the world shared an episode like this. We've never been kind of so much all united in the appreciation of how travel is a force for good, for jobs, for livelihoods, and for mental health, and keeping our minds open. That's it.
Well, nice rant, Rajan. I very much enjoyed that. So picking up on this kind of tourism as a force for good, clean and green, it's amazing how somewhere in our minds we all seem to think that climate control and coronavirus are somehow interrelated. Well, I do. I'm probably just speaking for myself. So we've already had a question about this, about whether you're going to be focusing on green destinations as almost the most safe place to travel. Carol from the National Forest has said, are you going to be focusing on green destinations? So that's That's absolutely in line with what you're saying. Do you think that green destinations are going to get a disproportionate amount of attention in the year ahead?
Yes, I suspect they will. I mean, I'm not in charge of commissioning, but that's certainly what I would look for. Somewhere like Iceland, for example, I can see being really popular, because even the kind of urban areas have got distance. It's about social distancing. It's about, as I say, open air, green, not too bad. Urban destinations, I think, might suffer a little bit because the kind of traveller that went there so much, and it's quite often the silver surfer, if you like, the older traveller, they're going to be a little bit more wary about making these trips, I suspect. And also the wide open spaces, the uncovered areas are attractive to younger risk-taking kind of travellers, and I think that'll be much more for them. They're going to be the first movers. So yes, that's the answer.
Terrific, Rajan. Actually, a further question for you for the travel show. This is from Frances Duke at Lotus. She wants to know, who do we pitch to at the travel show? Is it best to come in via you, or is there a permanent kind of commissioning editor that they should get to know?
There is, and before I give a name out and an email out, and I won't do that here because I need them permission.
Post event.
But I will, yeah, we'll post it later. But there is, and it's best to go through the commissioning thing. I mean, yes, I get loads of people contacting me, and if I think it's a good idea, I will definitely push it and say we should be doing this, we should be doing this. Yeah. But it's no guarantee. Ultimate choices with the editor.
Yeah.
But going back to there's also news editors of as I was talking before, news programs who might well be interested in quirky stuff. And I think David's going to talk about radio, and radio is another huge option here as well. And it's also easier to make radio.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for that, Rajan. So, David Reilly, great to have you here. So, David is an award-winning broadcast journalist, reporter, TV presenter. He has worked for ITV News nationally and regionally for 20 years. He continues to produce the 6 p.m. flagship program for ITN News Meridian in Southampton. And when he's not doing that, he teaches journalism at Solent University. But besides his years of broadcasting experience, which will come into play with half of what he says to you, he's also developed this award-winning YouTube channel. Again, award-winning, happened to win an award at the TravMedia Awards. We don't choose our panelists on that basis, but he did win Vlogger of the Year for the critically acclaimed Life of Reilly YouTube channel, which is David and his wife and kids having fun all around the world. And I hope it's something that David, wife and kids will be doing again soon, David. So over to you to take this argument forward into your areas of specialism, please.
Yeah, so as you just said there, I've spent the bulk of my life actually working professionally in TV and broadcasting. So I'm going to come towards the end of the YouTube kind of parts of it as well. And I've worked in the input, which is where we choose what stories we're going to run on the programme and how we're going to deliver them, and on the output as well. So actually going out there, interviewing people, putting the packages together and everything else that way. So from my point of view, I still see and still love TV broadcast. I love it. I think it's the prestige that goes with TV, which is why people want to be on it. It's got big numbers. It's got the advertising equivalent numbers, which I know PR people love. So it can see, a lot of people can see it at the same time, which is awesome. But over the years, it has got a lot tougher to get on our programs. And I'm talking from a news background, essentially, mostly here. And the reason for that is because it all got a bit crazy in the early 2000s. And that's when I kind of came into the scene. And back then, we were happily running a new flight, new destination. We'd send our travel correspondent off to Antigua or St. Lucia. They'd spend a week out there. They'd do a series of reports for the week. And on the Friday, there'd be a competition for our audience to get in touch, pay £1 to take part and try and win this prize. And then everything came tumbling down within a year or two after that. So the Ofcom scrutiny that came with the competitions and kind of prominence of advertisers and things, there is so much scrutiny now, so much so that a lot of broadcasters are actually quite wary of travel ideas and travel pitches. Now, Rajan works for the travel show. It's a bit different. That's still within a news program, but it's its own separate program. But within the 10 o'clock news, 6 p.m. programs, all of those, they're getting worried. So just to let you know how it's even now, not just 2003, 2004, when things were funny, and the scrutiny's there. Last year, in July, on Good Morning Britain, Judith Chalmers was on the programme, on the sofa, as you would get someone of her stature and who's been there, done it for all of her life. But she was actually on because Travel Republic pushed her to be on there. They had some survey results. Survey results I'll come back to in another time, but it's a great way of getting onto the TV nationally. But she was on there to show some survey results, and she included a couple of lines, including Travel Republic offers 300,000 holidays to thousands of countries every year. Two things. There aren't thousands of countries, so I think she was a bit off on that one. But the other one is that it sounded too scripted and it sounded too PR-y, and that got people's goats up a tiny bit. And there were complaints. And Ben Shepherd, who was presenting that morning, he tried to move the conversation on and said, that all sounds great, but tell us about this. And when it's written as a transcript, it doesn't look good when someone says, that sounds great, Judith. And Ofcom picked him up for that as well. So actually, Good Morning Britain breached the rules for products, services and trademarks that shouldn't be promoted. And that was July last year, and Ofcom came to a decision in December last year. So it's still happening. A slap on the wrist for Good Morning Britain. And again, it's another way that they get more worried about what they should be putting on there. Everyone, when these kind of things happens in the newsroom, everyone's like, right, okay, we're not doing that again. And everyone hears about it. It's one of those things that go around. From Travel Republic's point of view, you could say that it was great PR because they got 2 hits. Of course, the second round wasn't totally positive. But at the same time, to be fair, it was Good Morning Britain who are being told off rather than Travel Republic. They've probably burned their bridges now with Good Morning Britain, so I wouldn't suggest anyone do that as a way to do it, but it shows that it can happen and what happens there, and it's still around now. So it's making it a lot harder to get onto TV news these days than ever before, but I don't think it's impossible at all. There are still stories that people need to tell. We're still interested in telling the best stories and getting people on screen as well. Just, you need to be more creative at times as well, and potentially manage expectations with your bosses as well. So whereas they might think that you deserve a 2-minute feature on your destination or your hotel or your new flight, it's probably going to be a 15-second soundbite within the news. So you manage those expectations. Also, think about being creative. You may get on with a bigger name as a brand ambassador. They can get you on the sofa, that kind of thing. You could help out with a charity, and that could get you on the sofa and chatting about things in that way. And there are, of course, the surveys and new research that you can bring out as well. So there are ways still to do it, and you should totally strive to do it. And I wish you all the best of luck, and you will get on if you've got a good enough story. However, it can be tougher. I'm just going to go to one other thing about this as well. We do still need people to appear on our shows. Otherwise, we haven't got a good writer reply, and we're not doing a good enough job as journalists as well. So we do need people and experts on there. So still be proactive, and you need to be proactive on the day. Even if you can smell a story happening the night before, you need to get your managing directors, CEOs, whoever it is, up for interview and ready to go the next day straight away. Because it means you can react to that story and you're the first person they speak to. And I hate to say it, we haven't got enough time now as journalists to be searching around for the best person, the best talker, changing it up. I love Simon Calder, but the reason that he's on so many programs all over the country is because he picks up his phone and always does a brilliant job. Why not put yourself in that area? Why not make sure that your destination is kind of pushing on sustainability? They're one of the first people that any journalist calls, because the emails or the phone calls, or there's a relationship there as well, and you'll get that call back as well. Now, just because TV aren't interested, or you're getting disappointed with TV not coming back to you, radio is a fantastic medium for you still, okay? There are fewer news programs than ever before, really. We used to have 3 or 4 programs or bulletins throughout the day. We now have a lunch news and then an evening news program. So less content, less places for you to be put on there. However, for radio, they've still got 24-hour content, and 50% of radio stations out there today are still BBC-led. So that means they're talk radio that you can get on there. And how about, instead of having a 10-second talking head, you have a 15-minute chat about your destination on the radio? Now, they are, of course, still subject to the same Ofcom rules and everything like that, so there needs to be a story there. But you'll find you'll get a lot more time for the effort that you put into it as well, so you can get a good long chat on there as well. Also, podcasts, to take it forward a tiny bit. I don't know about you, but there has been a huge resurgence in podcasts in the last kind of 3-4 years. Initial spike with Ricky Gervais and that show that went on that everyone listened to, and then it got saturated. Everyone wanted to do it, and they were just cutting up their shows. It was a bit boring. So now we've got that resurgence of good quality programming, audio-wise, and also we're used to binge watching on Netflix, so we binge listen now. So I'm into some really big podcasts, and I love listening to them. Why not connect there into that area as well? And you can be on an hour show, and they're not subject to the same rulings as Ofcom offer as well, so it could be there. And as Elon Musk has shown, you can always get in the news from a podcast anyway, can't you? One quick thing about TV before I move on to the other side of things, and I realise I'm talking too much now, aren't I? One area to think about as well is primetime TV. Now, yes, it sounds stupid, but there is a great scope here for primetime shows. We all remember Airline with EasyJet back in the 90s. That was huge. The BBC recently had a very British airline, which was British Airways, life behind the scenes of them. All of that is pure PR of that company, and they're getting to know that company better, the audience getting to know them. They're real people. Do you have the same ideas and philosophies as that brand? And then you're more likely to buy into them as well. Joe McDonnell's been touring on cruise ships for years. That's been going on successfully on channels. A league of their own, why not try to get involved with them on Sky One with Jamie Redknapp and James Corden? That could be a good tie-in. Gordon Ramsay, Gino and Fred have got their travel show that's happening, and primetime travel, get into those areas. And this week I saw the Best Western Hotels series, which has just started on Channel 4. That is just pure PR in a way, you could say. Yes, they've got the characters, it's fun to watch, they've put some nice little elements in there, but what a great way for a brand to just have quality time, an hour on air every week on Channel 4. It's huge. And yeah, like I said, they'll buy into your brand a lot more. So I'm going to try and move on a bit faster now for you. The other side of it is basically, with live TV, you have it on screen in news for 10 seconds, or it might be on BBC iPlayer for 30 days. Now we have got YouTube, which is essentially you can share it for eternity. It's up there forever, and you're not really, well, it's kind of the wild, wild west of the internet at the moment, because you can get away with quite a few things, even though YouTube's cracking down on a lot of things. But at the moment we can still advertise, we can still promote and everything else like that. Also, the future is actually on YouTube and Netflix. If you're looking at 18 to 34-year-olds, the whole of those combined of 18 to 34-year-olds are watching watching Netflix and YouTube more than any other live TV as well. So that's where everyone's looking. So I'd be tempted to potentially, yes, always aim for the big broadcasters. That's where you want to be. That's where the prestige is. But also think about the quality content creators as well. And I've said quality, you don't want to be in there with someone that doesn't create something that matches your brand ideas or ethos. You don't want someone that's not going to make you look bad. You want someone to do a good job, and you want someone with good credibility as well. And it means that as a PR person or the destination, you've got elements of control, but you still need to make sure that it's authentic, that there's good stories to be had. So I find that the stuff that we make that's more shareable and less about just one destination does a lot better than if it's just a PR piece for a hotel or a landmark or a destination. So be brave enough to say to the YouTuber or the content creator or the TV producer, say, look, we want you to come and stay with us, see what we're doing, but make it about sustainability potentially, and then introduce some other people around it as well. And it's more authentic, more shareable, but also you've got that great piece to put out there as well. I think I'll wrap up there really, basically. I've talked too long, sorry.
Terrific, David. Just one quick question on YouTube. I see the great work that influencers do, but do you think we'll get to the point where travel destinations can create more-ish broadcasting on YouTube, a whole series about life in their destination? And do you think then, people will turn to YouTube to watch those programs? Do you see that as being possible, or does it need the support of a network?
No, I think there is totally the scope for actually creating a program for any brand or channel, but I think people are savvy, and if it's promoted by the landmark or the hotel or the destination that you're working for, people are skeptical straight away. And that's why it's so important that you make it authentic and you make it about a story as much. But like I said, if you had the access and could create something with British Airways, that would be brilliant. And you told their story. I think there's enough quality in elements in there to make it interesting. And if it wasn't just always we're perfect, we're perfect, we're perfect, I think people would find that interesting, and it could be a way forward. But yeah, that's definitely a way someone could go. But people, the viewers, will be in charge of whether they believe it or not.
Fantastic. Now, I know our audience is so intrigued and absorbed by everything, they haven't yet put their mind to questions, although we got one that second. But just a reminder to everyone, we'll give you a shout out, but please, it sounds like I'm pleading, please do post some questions of our fantastic panel today, because this is a really, really great debate. I've got one from Liz Blakeborough, Priya. David, she says, David, is it important to have a contract with a YouTuber, as a lot of those with larger numbers tend to charge? This makes it difficult if you're working for a smaller client. Do you need to pay for results, or is there a workaround in contras?
There is this weird point, because you want a YouTuber who's got influence and they've got the numbers. You want a YouTuber who can do a good job, and usually that's some of the ones that have the more followers and more subscribers as well. And if you want to tap into that side of things, then you will have to pay, and you will have to do that side of it, because they are earning a living. They're not creating it for a hobby anymore. It's something they're they're putting their whole livelihood into. And I think it's unfair to think of them in different ways to other advertisers sometimes. Okay. On the flip side, there's still a lot of content creators who aren't at that level, and you could pick up without having to pay. And that might be the sweet spot for trying to do it on a budget.
Okay, good to hear, good to hear. Is there a kind of ballpark figure that travel brands should be paying for more established influencers?
And you'd be surprised that, like I said, it's the wild west of social media and YouTube at the moment. Some people can ask for 5 figures, some people ask for something more modest. There's no two ways about it. And quite often, because they don't often, or potentially don't need the extra money from the advertiser because they've got money coming in from other areas, they might just slap a silly figure down to see what you'll do. So it depends what your relationship is like with them, but I wouldn't say there was one figure.
Okay, good to hear. We'll send your estimate to everyone after the show. Okay, so last up we have Carly Reid from Brighter Group. Carly is a partner at Brighter Group, a Finn Partners company. They are a company that works across every segment of travel and tourism, and have everything from a PR shop to representation. Mm-hmm. So Carly has 20 years sector experience in travel, and has spent the majority of her career managing the in-house press office for world-renowned brands such as NBC, Universal Parks and Resorts, for the Shard and for Virgin Holidays. And she's got a particular passion and specialism for broadcast media, and has had great success in the field, everything from setting up red carpet broadcasts with top-tier talent through to making the very first wedding atop the Shard happen live on ITV's This Morning. That's quite a coup. So, Carly, over to you for the PR's perspective on today's debate. Great to have you here.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, thank you, Rajan and David. Obviously, there's 2 great industry experts there, and now me following up. So I will do my utmost. I'm here to very much talk about the other side of the coin, what it's like from a PR perspective, pitching to broadcast media. It's hard enough on a normal day, let alone during COVID. Now, last night I was a very good girl and I knocked up some slides that will keep me on point. So allow me to just share my screen. Hold on one second.
Please do, Carly. That's great.
Okay. I just need to. Can you see the whole thing? Is that all right?
Looks great.
Okay. You sure?
Yeah. 100%.
Okay. Right, so Henry's already done a great job there introducing me. I'm going to start with a picture. Now, this picture, you might think, why is she sharing this? This picture was taken on March the 9th. I was very new, really, at Brighter. I joined at the end of Jan when coronavirus was making a name for itself. So since I've been at Brighter, starting my new job, coronavirus has been part of that. Now, this picture, March the 9th, we had a great night, as you can see. We won a number of awards. I'm not showing you this image for all that, but maybe I am a little bit. This evening was full of fist bumps. This is when coronavirus was really starting to impact the UK. This night was the last night I was in London. And from this day, I've never been back to London since. Our office is closed and we've been working remotely, as have you, ever since, as have all the journalists that we're speaking to. So I thought that was quite a poignant picture to start on.
Yeah, terrific. Hey, Carly, can you go
Yeah.
slideshow mode on this so that we can...
I can't see, oh yeah, hang on.
That'd be lovely, from current slide.
Got it. Is that better? Can you
Yeah,
see it now?
perfect.
Okay. Awesome. Or the picture could have been bigger. Anyway, so we're all working from home, we're all working remotely. It's no surprise that media consumption is at an all-time high. Across the nation, across all broadcast spectrums, we're looking at a 64% increase. Same with radio. You know, David already just touched on that. There is a huge opportunity right now for PRs. Predominantly, we're watching news. I find this fact really interesting. My dad gave it to me in one of our quizzes that we're all very good at now. 27 million people watched Boris Johnson address the nation that night. It is the biggest event in UK history. That is how much we are, as a nation, consumed by TV right now, because we are desperate to know what guidelines are coming up next, what news is happening next, how it's going to affect me, my family, and my business. So, as I said, news numbers are actually doubling. Channel 4 quotes there, Sky News quotes. March saw a huge spike, and we have seen a bit of a decrease now in numbers, a bit like the R number. It's coming down, but it's still really prevalent. And it's something as a PR that you really need to tap into. Some other facts there, obviously drama is very high and other figures, but it's all very much about news. So travel, I was telling the gents about this. The holy grail for us as any PR is broadcast, although I love all kinds of coverage. We, for once, travel, and it might be for the wrong reasons, but we are the top of the news agenda. There is not a morning that you will wake up and put on the TV, turn on the radio, when a travel company is not on there. This is our time. This is our time to get it right and to maximize our opportunity for our clients and brands more than ever before. It's all about, and I think Rajan said this, about the health and safety, the cleanliness. We need to be showing the world what our brands, what our clients, what our hotels, destinations, what are we doing? What are we putting in place? What impact are our protocols going to have on you? So pitching in a pandemic, and I've just put some notes here from my experience since March doing all of this. So you'll hear from media, we need a break from coronavirus. We need a positive story. But if you look at the positive stories, all of them are actually related back to coronavirus. Positive stories about local communities, whether it be in the UK or Antigua. So do remember that, yes, they want a positive spin, but it is very much about coronavirus and the impact it's still having. It's still so prevalent. Read the room, you know, be empathetic. Make sure we're not selling products right now. You know, this is the time to hold back on those things and talk about what's current and address the nation. So newsrooms, they're working on skeleton staff. They really are. So make it easier than ever for them. So be precise, be really punchy, and know that there's so many other PRs doing the same. So you've got to really make it count more than ever. And be old school, get on the phones again. Keep your eye on the news. Every day, I kind of am doing plans for clients, and then the next day I have to rewrite them because there's new news, new restrictions, etc. So keep your eye on the news, because every single morning you might have a client that you can jump off the back of. I hate the term agendaneering, it's very PR, but it's more important than ever to be able to do that. Comment is king. Now I put that because everyone wants a response from an expert, so get ready to give that response. Spokespeople are more sought after than ever, and a spokesperson can be an expert, an ambassador, a CEO, a local with a good story. So think about those spokespeople and have a little bit of collateral and a few of them up your sleeve, ready to go. We're working to shorter lead times than ever. So, you know, my background, you know, it's very much about working with the likes of ITV 3-6 months ahead. It's not like that now. You know, we are working 24 hours in advance. Sometimes, you know, you'll see a story drop at 5 o'clock and we'll have a client on the news within an hour. You need to become the go-to person, and you need to pick up that phone, whatever the time it is, to get your spokesperson on. And patience is key. With the ever-changing landscape, you might set something up and it might get cancelled. So just bear with it, hold fire, and ride out the storm. As I said, travel is the news right now, so snap it up. This is a great opportunity. Spokespeople right now, that is where you're going to get your numbers. That is where you're going to get your broadcast activity. So, as I said, have them waiting in the wings, have them briefed. So get bios for each of your person and headshots and provide all of the newsrooms with them. You can have 3 or 4 per client from different backgrounds, different fields. Spell out in those bios what their expertise are and what they can comment on, so that these people in the newsrooms know they have trusted source to go to immediately. Use this time to make sure media training is up to scratch. You don't have to pay lots of money. You can do that. As I mentioned, be available on little to no notice, and the quickest on the buzzer wins. The quicker you get to that newsroom, or the quicker you answer your phone, you will win. Make sure also, this is really important, make sure, especially if it's a minister being interviewed from abroad, they're not necessarily au fait with everything that's happened in the UK that day. So make sure it's your job to tell them, so that there's no kind of topical debates that are going to surprise them during that interview and catch them off guard. A very big one, and we've learned this in the last week, if you do a pre-recorded interview, that is going to be edited. So it's really important that those answers that you give are really succinct and to the point, so that any editing that is done is not going to change your messaging too much. So here are some tech tips. There have been a number of interviews where some of these tech tips haven't been adhered to. So it's a bit of a tick list, but it's very, very important to get things right. So use your laptop, don't use your iPhone. Make sure you're looking into the camera. I'm not doing a very good job representing this right now, but make sure you've got a good background, your lighting's right, dress maybe not with the frills like I am, but it's important to dress like you're going to the studio. You know, dress like you're going to work, at least from the waist up. Use headsets to help with feedback, and also you normally have a microphone closer to your mouth, which studios prefer, and they suggest that you do. Turn off self-view. It's very easy to look at yourself, not because you're being vain, but for me, I'm spotting grey hairs and all sorts. So turn that self-view off. And even if you're in a meeting with clients for a PR, I recommend doing that, because then it's more two-way conversational and you feel like you're having a better conversation with that person virtually. Do a tech check. We had a mini tech check before this. That's really important. And turn off those notifications, those emails and calendar invites that are coming through, so you can really focus. I wanted to end on a positive. You know, there will be a time when we are post-lockdown. I can't bear the term post-corona, post-COVID. We won't be post-COVID. The world won't be, but we will be post-lockdown. And there is a time when we won't be just jumping off the news again, but we'll be planning these really big ticket items that we're used to and that I love. So whilst you are waiting, you might be able to jump off the news like we are. But if not, really take advantage of this lull and think about forward planning. Think about, you know, as the world opens up again, what you could be doing. You know, weddings have been cancelled. Can you work with broadcasters to set up those weddings again? Whatever it might be, competitions. People are not going to have the budgets that they used to have for their holidays. Holidays are going to be more of a luxury than ever. So I think competitions are going to start increasing again, a bit like the old days. Polish off content that you've had for years and not been able to do, or get your B-roll sorted out, upgrade your assets. You know, big shows, The Apprentice, Strictly Come Dancing, Ainsley Harriet, all those shows where there's longer opportunity, although they're skeleton staff, those production teams are still in planning right now, and they need you. They need your ideas of how to work in this time during lockdown. So I urge you, even if you don't have something to give right now, still stay in touch with those production companies, so that as the world opens back up, they know who to call on. So I think that's it from me. I think that's the last slide. Yes.
Terrific, Carly. That's
what was it for time? Not too bad.
Marvelous. If you can just.
Yep.
There we are. We're all back. Well, that was a terrific insight into pandemic pitching from Carly. Thank you so much for that. And I'm very conscious with these that we ask our panelists to come and speak in front of their industry peers and colleagues, and I really hope they get something out of it. And I will say that directly out of that, Carly, you've done well, because Jane Harris of Visit Wales wants a copy of your presentation. If you can share it with her, we'll make sure we get Jane's details to you. But no, some wonderful insights, really terrific. You raised the B-roll point, actually, maybe one for any of our panelists here. Do PR sometimes miss out when there's a breaking story just because they lack good B-roll of their travel product or destination? Maybe Rajan, for you first.
We certainly have access to lots of B-roll. We will use B-roll if the story requires. They don't send it, but certainly have access to it and immediate access to it, and tell people that you've got it. Yeah, for producers, that's very useful. Okay.
Do you use particular libraries for B-roll, or do you just go to the PR for the destination and say, can you get B-roll across to us?
It depends. I mean, we're obviously trying to avoid showcasing individual products. So if it has to be a generic type image, then we'll probably go to the BBC's B-roll. I mean, I don't do too much of this, but from what I gather. But yes, if we're in urgent need, I mean, I'm just thinking of something, we did something about the moon landing last year, the year before, and the anniversary. And we had to go to NASA specifically for those pictures. Only they had those pictures. So if you are good at getting specific pictures, which aren't advertising your product too obviously, that's always useful.
From our point of view, for TV news especially, the whole thing is led on pictures, and we will take away and not use a story just because we haven't got the pictures to go with it. So if you haven't got the pictures, we won't run it at all. Ideally, we try to use our ITV archives and go through that way, first of all, in case we've got our own pictures and our reporters have been to that destination. But if it's important enough and there are pictures there, it will get run.
Okay, that's great. So just going to questions, keep them coming, everyone. We've got Sarah at Bacall PR just saying, do you expect that broadcasters will still feel comfortable sending out large TV crews to destinations, or are we going to see a shift in how travel programs are actually made? Will it be one person and their camera going out and doing the whole thing?
It's like just within there, it was already going that way. I mean, when I started, there used to be a two-person crew, a camera person, a sound person, and then you got a director and whatever else, researcher, blah, blah. It's already going to producers self-shooting anyway. So yes, there will be a premium on making sure that not too many people go out there. So health and safety are all over this. At the same time, if you've got equipment, you're going to need somebody to help. It's always good to have somebody to watch it back. If I'm there, then as a reporter, I'm the extra person. Plus, you always need a local. So there will be some pruning, if you like, but you know, you're still going to need an essential, basic minimum number of people there.
That's great. David, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for a news program, it's a bit different. The story has to be really, really, really good for us to send someone out to a different country, and that's at national level even as well. I mean, for ITV national news, we've got correspondents in different destinations anyway, so they could easily do that. If it was about a news subject, yeah, they would totally go still, no problem with that. But if it's a puff piece, a bit of PR, no. And as I've said before, they're very wary about sending anyone for news for that anyway.
Cool.
I'll just add on that one. I think, so for example, Strictly Come Dancing, they've had to submit to the BBC how they can do the show with the 2 metre distance and in quarantine, and they've done that. So they've guaranteed the BBC that they will put the show into quarantine, the same drivers will take them to and from the show, etc. Right? They found a way of doing it. A show like The Apprentice, which they have touch points with over 1,000 different people throughout that series. That is the show, getting to destination, and you're not going to get a crew like smaller than 60 on a show like The Apprentice. So it's not a one-man band. You can't just nip off, you know, to the States and do that anymore. So these shows are going to have to completely rethink during this time, you know, if they can start up at all. So I think we need to, as PRs, come up with suggestions of how it could work and how it could look. Because the other danger at the moment is, you know, at least in 2020, the guarantee of getting these crew back in the UK. You know, at the moment they can't go anywhere, knowing that their livelihoods are at risk. So it's a time where we can't plan anything.
Yeah.
I know quite often now I'm getting information from PRs about how there's a local fixer available in a certain country, and even a local crew, and that may become more and more important, as you know, in this new normal. I hate to use that cliche, but you know what I mean. So I can see that happening.
So having a worldwide network of contacts is going to help there enormously.
Yeah.
Do any of you have any thoughts about the chronology with which travel broadcasting will begin to re-emerge? I mean, Rajan right at the beginning said domestic, he said green, he said open spaces. Have any of you got ideas about what are going to be the first stories to run? Maybe Carly, start with you first here.
Yeah, well, at the moment it's going to be all about the first. We're going to see you know, borders open up. So Antigua is one of the first Caribbean islands to open its borders next Thursday, June the 4th. That's a big, big story, you know, and the amount of protocols that they're putting into place to be ready for those guests, that's a story in itself right now. So, you know, you can imagine if you know, that American Airlines plane that lands that day with the US, you know, on it, that's a perfect broadcast story. I wish it was a British plane, you know. So I think they're the stories as people open up. July the 4th, UK hotels are going to start opening up. Again, that's a great opportunity, you know, for your clients, hoteliers, campsites, whoever they might be. You know, someone like David from Meridian, get them down there. What proportions are in place? Who's the first guest? Why is that guest staying there? Is it to be reunited with family they haven't seen? There are so many stories about why people are going to start traveling on those first few days, and people are desperate to know what it looks like. So great opportunities as things open up.
Yeah.
From a British angle, I'm thinking about this in my head. The story, the similar story. I mean, I've been seeing how Madeira, Portuguese island, you know, is really wanting people to go there. It's offering to pay for tests and all this stuff. And I think there is a story in the Brits who are going to somewhere and are willing to spend 2 weeks in quarantine.
Yeah.
On the way back. That's obviously a story to be done, and we'll see how that goes. But and I'm not completely convinced that how long, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but how long this quarantine is going to last, because the industry pressure on the government is immense right now.
Yeah.
And at times of crisis, I think we become a bit more insular and looking at our own borders first. So I think from a PR point of view, I think people will be looking at what they can do domestically. And I think it's a great opportunity for domestic PRs. But at the same time, when Disneyland in Shanghai opened again, that was still a story. So it's that mix of the two. But I think if you're looking for British PRs, I think go domestically first, and then we can start looking at the other side of things. But at the same time, if the story's there and it's happening right now, news companies want to be there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a question from Rob Stewart at Ski Press, who it's a kind of general question saying, for ski and snowboarding broadcast content, are there any kind of new ways of covering that from a broadcasting point of view, you know, visually?
Well, visually, I'm not 100% sure, but don't forget, they've just missed a whole season pretty much, a lot of these places. So again, when it does pick up, a lot of these ski resorts, you're not going to be able to get to unless you perhaps charter a private jet, for example. So you're going to be able to get some amazing content in terms of some of these really renowned, Southsea Do, for example, a really famous ski resort known for the Brits and all others going there. Slopes are going to be empty, you know, it's going to be have your pickings, because we simply don't have the capacity to get people there. So again, that's still stories in itself. How are they going to pick up? What's it looking like for those first few weeks, months, as the season picks back up again?
Yeah.
From a general point of view on pictures, like I said before, are king as well. So snowboarding, skiing has great ideas for pictures. The drone shot, the GoPro on the helmet, the GoPro on the snowboard looking back up. It's got great scope for visuals, and that will make it really engaging for your audiences.
Yeah.
There is an interesting issue in damage limitation here as well, because there's collateral connection, if you like, with damage with skiing and Europe and the coronavirus breakout. I mean, I'd be interested to see how PRs, if they have any flack or any issues that they have to deal with that and the association.
Well, I think so. These webinars, you know, I've attended a few myself, and as an agency, we audit the media once a month. To really see what they're after and in what format. And what's come out the most is they are so desperate to get back behind Italy. I think Italy got an awful lot of, negative press, and it was terrible what they went through, as it is for the rest of the world and for our nation. But I really believe that, and I'm lucky because we look after Italy, but there's a huge interest in Italy, and I'm really excited about getting Italy on the map and showing all the good things about it. So I really believe Italy is going to be a flying year.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. So coming back to travel shows, do we think that travel shows are going to revolve around people? We've seen kind of the Love Islands and so forth, which is kind of morphed out of the old stuff like Blind Date, where, couples will go off to a paradise destination. Is bringing people into destinations going to be crucial to pitching a travel program into the future? Maybe Rajan?
Well, I mean, I think that again was a trend anyway. I mean, lots of programs. Top Gear is a travel show in disguise, I sometimes think.
Absolutely.
And same with cooking shows. And Carly brought this up. There are lots of opportunities where it's not actually nominally a travel show, but it is essentially one, which uses lots of locations. The real Hotel, Marigold Hotel, those things. They're all basically travelogues. Yeah. There's two guys, three brothers who've gone to India. All those programs, and usually watching somebody like a fish out of water kind of thing works quite well. Celebs always drive travel TV. I mean, I'm slightly irritated by that, but there we go. And Joanna Lumley's done a very nice line in those kind of programs that she does. So there will always be space for a personality that you can connect with and seeing them in a strange part of the world.
Yeah. And that kind of works on the YouTube side of things as well. If you get that content creator that has people endear to and have a relationship with and can connect with, that could be a way forward as well. And I think there will be the moving over of people that the broadcasters really like on YouTube and switching them into a traditional broadcast as well. I think the next new Ant and Dec is going to come from YouTube. It's not going to come from children's TV, which is where it used to come from.
Very interesting. So just Carolyn Spinks of Abtoy, Association British Straw Operators to Italy, says thanks to Carly for a very nice point about Italy. I mean, we would all love to go and visit Italy right now, I'm sure. Great to have some more questions from the audience. We're going to need to wrap up in a minute. I'm going to just ask our panel their predictions for where travel broadcasting might go in the next 5 years. I'll start with you, Rajan. Forget coronavirus. We're not here. This is some strange, surreal world. We're back in the normal world where we can go where we like and enjoy ourselves and shout and have fun. Where would travel broadcasting go now in such a world? What are your predictions?
Well, the Holy Grail has become more and more places where people haven't been very much before. I mean, that certainly is in our case. So little pockets of new destinations. As I was mentioning before, they're always going to be attractive. I mean, when we did Mongolia, and you mentioned me wrestling there. I mean, there is this. These are the kind of places that certainly for the travel show, people are really interested in. Not that familiar. I mean, we're not going to go to LA unless there's a reason to be there. There's the obvious places are less interesting to us. So any part of the globe, of the planet that has not properly been covered is what is going to be interesting.
Okay, that's fantastic. David, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen really quickly with a stat that I was going to put in, but I think now might be a good time to do that. Have I put the right screen up? I'm sharing the wrong. Yeah. You seen Zoom?
Yeah, that's looking good.
Yeah, that's not looking good. Meant to be the wrong one. Should be that one. There we go. It's come back to the same one. That's a shame. Oh, it was basically the stats of how YouTube is doing and Netflix are doing. So because the younger people up to 34s aren't watching as much live normal TV, I'll call it, think about pitching some documentary ideas to Netflix as well, because that's where people are. There's a whole new world out there, and I think in 5 years' time, fewer and fewer people will be watching live TV, normal TV.
Do they have a UK infrastructure that PRs can communicate with, or is it pitching to the States?
I'm not too sure, in particular on Netflix in general, but what usually happens is you produce a piece of content or a documentary, and then you can try and sell it to them that way. So there's still scope for going into that local or that producer and making it the documentary and trying to pitch it that way. But that's the way I think it's going to go. And if you don't want to have to try and get it green lit by Netflix, then YouTube is an easy place to put something.
Fantastic. Carly, your thoughts?
I think movies is a huge one. You know, you think about Game of Thrones and things like that. It's synonymous now with Iceland, and you know, I've got a theory that Iceland is going to become the new Hollywood. You know, and that so many places use it. So I think movies is a good one, especially with Netflix. Like David says, they've actually run out of content now. They're really struggling.
Yeah.
So the other thing I think is the reset button, which the world has had and that we are currently on in travel. I think there's a little bit of this nostalgia, this Judith Chambers. We're all remembering actually that travel isn't necessarily 10 trips a year and we take it for granted and we're there and back in a weekend. We're all falling in love with it once more, and we're appreciating, I hope we appreciate it forever, how special travel is. And I think those old school shows like The Wish You Were Here is how you started this webinar, Henry. I'm hoping things like that are going to come back.
I wish it would. I wish it would. Well, that sounds like a good moment to wrap up. We've reached 1 o'clock. You've been a wonderful, wonderful panel. Our gun for hire, Rajan, the life of YouTube, David Reilly, and pandemic picture, Carly. You've all been wonderful. Thank you so much for your insights. It's been lovely doing this with you. To our audience, there will be another TravMedia professional development session in a couple of weeks' time. We look forward to seeing you all then. Stay safe, and thank you very much for having joined us today.
Thank you.